Hello, all, and welcome. My name is Ayana Wallace View, and I'm a training and technical assistance manager with Ujima, the National Center on Violence Against Women in the Black Community. Welcome to another episode of our February Ujima Talk series. This series is focused on teen dating violence in the Black community, and these 101 Ujima Talks are meant to offer insights into how dating violence shows up in the lives of Black teens and youth, and to explore the supports that they need in order to stay safe, empowered, and connected. These recorded conversations will also provide some culturally specific strategies and resources, empowering our youth with knowledge, tools, and a sense of community as we face these critical issues together. And I have the pleasure of introducing Tonjie Reese, who's the executive director of 1124 and a good girlfriend of ours now with Ujima. We love her. I'm going to give a quick bio about Tanji, and then we'll jump into questions to make sure we get all the good stuff I know is going to come from this conversation. So, Tanji is a Detroit native, advocate, preventionist, and founder of 1124, a program dedicated to reimagining gender-based violence prevention through a lens of liberation and community. Her work in the movement began as a sophomore in high school when she participated in a traveling play focused on dating abuse. Her expertise has led to numerous training workshops for caring adults, to center marginalized youth in their work, and developing culturally specific resources for organizations. In her many years of youth serving gender-based violence work, she's held roles as a prevention program director, national community initiatives coordinator, and senior program officer, always centering the experiences of Black youth. She's presented at numerous conferences, including the National Sexual Assault Conference, and has built partnerships with several violence prevention programs. Tanji sits on the IPV Prevention Advisory Board and partners with the National Network on Domestic Violence to create resources focused on technology abuse among young people. She's a firm believer that prevention is possible and holds a BS in behavioral science and an MA in education, leadership, and change. 1124 aims to reduce the prevalence of relationship abuse and sexual violence among young people. Through an intersectionality and social liberation lens, we enhance the capacity of caring adults, both professional and personal, by providing training and consultation. Our program uses media literacy, storytelling, and identity affirmation to reimagine prevention. And so I love all of that. And I love how Tanji does her work. And so let's jump into some questions that'll really help us get a better understanding of what you do, the type of work you do, why you do it, and how we as community can really better support survivors.
Yes.
So, first question, and this is something I've really been interested in. I heard a little bit from our webinar about, your work and then your bio as well. But what really brought you into doing dating and domestic violence work, and especially why the intersections of tech and teens?
Yeah. So it's wild to think I started this work in high school, and at the time I was a theater kid, so I wasn't necessarily looking to specifically talk about relationship abuse and sexual violence. It was really me wanting to be a part of this theater program, and
Yeah.
so that was a topic, but it was such an intentional program, and I want to just give honor to my teacher, Miss Brenda Perryman, who has since passed on, but she really instilled like that this was important for us, for ourselves, for our friends. And so that was a big part of my life for some years. We recorded it and everything. But when I went to college, one of the classes that I probably was one of my only A's in college, honestly, was a crimes against women's class. And I just
Okay.
like attached to the class. It was just
Mhm.
it felt connected, it felt easy. I just understood like so many parts of like the feminist movement, like why violence happens. Even that's where I learned about bell hooks was in that class. And so that was really a big draw for me. But then when I graduated, I was looking for a job and just so happened they had a community educator position that was open. And so that class, I think the peer education really helped me to get that job. And so I spent
Hmm.
a lot of time in middle schools and high schools doing education work. And so at the time when I started, this was like 2011, so some time ago, but technology was kind of and social media in general was starting to spark. Like a lot of
Mhm.
young people at that time weren't necessarily on social media, but they definitely had cell phones. And this it
Right.
was becoming one of those times when many young people had access to technology in some kind of way. But we know that like technology has been around and harm has existed with technology since, it started with like chat rooms and Black Planet and all type of other
Mhm.
like websites that young people had access to. And so what I noticed is that there was a generational shift starting to happen. And it seems like that time between like after 2010 to like 2015, technology just like shot up.
Yeah.
And there was so much more access to people and each other. This is like when Snapchat started. This is like when so many other of those platforms started. And so just being a prevention educator and like having that relationship with young people and hearing what was important to them,
Mhm.
that technology intersection really for me became natural. Another part of that too is like I really during my grad program started to learn more about media literacy and the impact of media just on like the way that we view ourselves and other people and how it's connected to socialization and those like root
Mhm.
causes of violence. And so that is another way. Like I thought about like how we can create new technology, new media, and use social media in a different way. And so it's been something I've always been interested in. But then I started connecting with National Network to End Domestic Violence and a tech safety project. And so we
Mhm.
started to do more work together, more intentional work around teens and technology.
Yeah, the resources you've created with them are really great. So I would highly encourage folks to take a look. And we'll make sure to link them as well.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, what are some of the main themes that you're currently seeing in your work with youth?
Yeah, so it's really interesting that things are the same, but they also change. I think with so much access people have, there is still a lot of loneliness with young people.
Hmm.
And a lot of it's assumed that because young people have so much more access to information that they know more. And it's also assumed that they just understand things about dating, about violence, about sex. And that's just not true. Many young people are getting their information from still from TV, social media, friends. But I've learned that many young people just don't know even sometimes how to engage in healthy relationships or even have conversations to talk to someone.
Right.
It feels so isolated sometimes.
Hmm.
And I think that isolation can also be harmful because if you think about like abusive tactics that happen, isolation is such a big part of it. And I think about how easy it is for someone to feel isolated, or the other part of it is because relationships can be so public and it can be like, it's not just like a personal thing between, whoever you're in a relationship with. It's like, yes, we're in a relationship, but this person knows, and that person knows, and that person knows, and it's blasted here. And if you don't post me,
Hmm.
it's like this. And so when those relationships end, it can feel detrimental,
Right.
and sometimes as adults, we don't always take relationships with young people serious. We look at it as like puppy love and stuff like that. But because of all of this access and because of how intense relationships can be, we do have to just take it seriously.
Yeah.
Because it can be dangerous, especially I like around breakups. That's the one thing. Like breakups are the most um risky times. Like we know that for domestic violence survivors, that it takes people about 7-10 times to leave. That it becomes most lethal when they're trying to leave. With young people, breakups can really impact their own emotional well-being. It can impact the way that they see relationships. And it can also be hard for them to break up and to leave, especially
Hmm.
when relationships become harmful.
Hmm. And so, sticking with this thread that we've been on, what type of messaging in particular, or even like, I was really big, I like love reality TV. I'm not necessarily a big social media person, but I love
Mm-hmm.
reality TV. I love watching trends. I love watching like couples challenges, all that type of stuff. And what I saw were there were a lot of different trends that were actually pretty problematic, but they were pretty much couched as like couple goals or like all couples do these things. And so what type of messaging are teens getting, especially about things like love, relationships, dating, and ending relationships in particular? I thought that was a really interesting point.
Yeah, I'm with you with the reality TV. It like Love Island is the thing, right? Like it's so many shows that show relationships in this like um hyped up way, and it doesn't
Hmm.
really show reality, but sometimes that reality can like be skewed because of what you said, like the trends and like this is normal. And so even like the lack of empathy that is developed, I think is such a big part and a reason why young people may their relationship views might be different, or they can also struggle sometimes with like with relationships, is because empathy, is lessened. Like if we see somebody dating multiple people, doing multiple people wrong, and it's like, oh, that's normal. Or if we see even some of those pranks that happen where it's like,
Yeah.
did that person actually like that? Or like, are they comfortable with it? But if the intent is to go viral, whatever, it seems like, okay, we need to do that. Or even showing like what is considered a happy couple,
Hmm.
or like even some of the conversations that are said. And it's like, if you did that in the real world and it was outside social media, would it have the same, would it hit the same? Would it have the same impact? If it was that somebody would probably be really upset with you,
Hmm.
and so that's why I said I think that empathy is lost, or that understanding of like how those messages and videos like that can be harmful. But especially again, like with reality TV too, like that's not how life is.
Yeah.
It's not real. You can't judge it off of that. Like this is curated,
Hmm.
and so I think that's another part, is like the curation part makes the ability to have authentic, genuine relationships, it takes that away. And when we think about
Hmm.
the healthy relationship, like things that we need, like communication, honesty, openness, trust, like autonomy, like, just fairness, like that doesn't happen in this space when things aren't authentic.
Hmm. What do you think some of the biggest misconceptions or gaps for adults and parents are regarding teen dating violence, and maybe the same for teens that are actually experiencing it?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to first, like for parents especially, and for caring adults just in general, because it's parents, but it's also like big cousins, it's like
Mhm.
coaches and teachers, like it's so many adults just in general who feel like relationships with young people are not that serious. Um, or just discount it as like this will go away. You shouldn't be dating anyway.
Yeah.
You'll love more people. You'll be in a relationship with more people. But for a young person, which is also what dating violence makes it difficult for them to leave, they also may feel like this is the person I'm supposed to be with. And if we think about so many media examples of like somebody meeting the love of their life in high school and being with them
Yeah.
forever, okay, well, if I met this person, I'm supposed to be with them forever. And sometimes, unfortunately, that means that it doesn't matter if this person is harming me, or they'll get better, or they just don't know better. And so the excuses can be, it can be a lot of excuses that are there without actually acknowledging, like, no, you don't have to accept this. Yes,
Hmm.
there can and will be other people in your life who you will love and care about and can have a relationship with, or just build friendships with. Like, there's so many other people in your life that you'll meet, and you can't, well, it's not safe or healthy to stay in a
Hmm.
relationship that is harmful just because you feel like you won't get to know anybody else, or this is the person you're supposed to be with because it's the first person that you cared about in that way.
Hmm. Absolutely. Um, I'm wondering, can you talk to us about the impact that, or can you explain first what adultification is and the impact that it has specifically on Black girl survivors?
Yeah, so that adultification bias is that belief that young people of color, Black girls especially, and Black boys too get a lot of adultification bias. But it's that belief that they're more adult-like, can know more about sex, can make more decisions, and it takes away like the ability just to be a child or a young person. It's like
Hmm.
it's an erasure, to quote the study by Georgetown Law, that Law and Poverty, I think that's what it's called, but it's an erasure of girlhood. And so that creates so many issues for young people, but also for people around them. Like, especially in the Black community, you hear people talking about girls being fast. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's not them even doing anything beyond existing,
Yeah.
existing, learning about themselves, growing naturally, and those messages give them also the impression that they are grown.
Mm-hmm.
And with many relationships that are abusive with young people, we see often that it's someone who is older than them, taking advantage of that. And
Mm-hmm.
I also think about the young people who are experiencing violence and feel like because they're grown or because they were doing things that were considered grown that they don't need to get help from
Yeah.
a caring adult or someone. And so even just off of that, but I've also seen it too, like in schools where Black girls are getting harshly punished in school. And so if I'm getting harshly punished in school, I don't feel comfortable here, I don't feel safe. Where can I find safety? And unfortunately, sometimes that looks like a person who is older, who
Yeah.
has access to resources that you might want or need. And so now I don't need this place. I don't
Mm-hmm.
need this because this person is taking care of me. And that's how, grooming happens. That's when
Yeah.
we see so many missing and murdered Black girls who are trafficked, and it sparks from just that belief that this young person is grown, and it comes from those harsh punishments that they can experience in school.
Hmm. I think that school push out piece is really, really
Mm-hmm.
important because again, a lot of blame goes on to young girls for how we are able to survive
Mm-hmm.
instead of really thinking about like predators are lurking. They're just like they know that schools are gonna push black girls out. They know
Yep.
the girl's gonna get out this time. I need to drive by a couple times, engage her, and I have a car so I can pick her up whenever I want. Like there's a lot of different entry points that people don't really think about, but
Mm-hmm.
are placing the blame on black girls. So I was like, when you were talking, I was really just thinking of like, wow, it's really important for us to remember as over-policed as black girls and especially our bodies are, we are in many ways so unprotected in
Mm-hmm.
spaces that we are then policed in. So yeah, I think that was a really, really great point.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's hard because unfortunately sometimes that first experience of the policing comes within our own homes and our own
Yeah,
community.
yeah.
And I think about like what message that shows, like where do you feel like you can feel safe and protected? And it should be everywhere, right? It should be within your family and your community. Like that is a responsibility of all of us
Hmm.
because that's really where they're hearing those messages first. It's not often, it's from everybody.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could go into a whole tangent about this. So I'm
Oh,
gonna go
I'm
to the
just
next
like, let
question
me.
because I was already like, listen, I have another thought, but I am gonna say it though because I was thinking about, I've had a lot of these conversations too with like women's and gender studies classes. We're talking about community, we're talking about protection, and there's this fine line with wanting to protect your children and also feeding into narratives and tropes
Yeah.
that are ultimately gonna harm them because they also harmed you. So
Yeah.
like black women, like I even had a conversation with my mother. It was something simple, well, maybe not simple, but it was about hair. And we talked for a long time about what hairstyle she should wear in the office. And she was in her 60s at that point, still talking about what's appropriate. We had conversations about my childhood and how I was allowed to dress or not, given the size of my body and like the shape of my body. And
Mm-hmm.
having developed very early, I was 8 years old when I was really like, I was actually developed already. And so having conversations about some of the ways I was patrolled, like her meaning to be protective, but also still felt limiting to me because it felt like I was being punished for something that I was just living,
Yeah.
right? So I think
Mm-hmm.
about survivors who are facing adultification, are being impacted by things going on in school, are looking for their community to rally, and people wanting to be protective, but not necessarily having the language or the language or like the modes to be as effective as they might want.
Right. Yeah. And it's hard, right? Because we don't know. Like we really are just, I think a lot of like parents and adults and people just in general are just going off of what we heard, what we taught. but we have to really make space for new ways of being and new ways
Yeah.
of parenting and having that relationship with young people.
Yeah. And I do like it's really nice when you are able to have those conversations and unpack a lot of that stuff and see those shifts happening within your family or within your community. So I think, these multi-generational conversations that we need to keep having are really just for the benefit of our community, even when they're really tough.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As the founder of 1124, you were very intentional about building your program. Can you talk to us about what some of that intention looked like and how your vision potentially has evolved since the inception of your program?
Yeah. So it's wild to think that it's been like 8 years since that happened, and a lot of it like sparked from me seeing a need. I've, like I mentioned, done a lot of prevention work in schools and communities. And it felt robotic almost. It felt like
Hmm.
this is just going through the motions, and I know it's impactful, but like, are we really making like deep impacts? Are we really addressing and touching all young people?
Hmm.
So that was where it started from. And when I was in grad school, I did a lot of research on like, does prevention actually work? Because at that time I've been doing prevention work for a while, and I'm like, is this actually like effective? And so I started to look at what makes prevention effective, and it's not a lot of research around prevention programs that are culturally specific, that are targeted towards like Black girls. I know it exists, right? But there's not a lot of research that was around it. And so I started looking at like mentor programs and other spaces where Black girls and young Black people might get some type of prevention education. And so that is really how 1124 started. It was not supposed to be an organization. I had no intention on doing this, but I had to write a mock grant, and I wrote the name of the grant as 1124. And so in the season of life I was in at that time, I had opportunity to explore it. And I was like, maybe I just need to just explore this and like
Yeah.
explore what I have been thinking, and how like how the way we look at prevention can be reimagined to not just the standard, these are statistics, don't do this, don't do that, this is harmful, but how can we talk about it from a space of like joy and
Hmm.
safety, and talk about the good parts and the healing parts of it? How can we engage like every community member as a part of it? And it comes from me just being an auntie. Like, I want to be able to talk to you about relationships, talking to my friend and her daughter,
Hmm.
about relationship dynamics, talking to my nephews and as they're getting older. And so I want, like, this is what we need to have this. And it's not going to come with like, I'm going to tell you this statistic, but it might come from talking about a TV show we've seen, or like,
Hmm.
explain to me about Roblox and what are you doing here? And you can talk to people. So what kind of things do people say? Or like, oh, you have a group chat? Like, what do you do if somebody says something in a group chat you don't like and it's not cool? Like, what can you
Hmm.
say? So that's the vision behind it. That plus Black feminist thought, Patricia Hill Collins just really going with the ethic of care and centering care, because I think
Hmm.
what I experience is that when you go into a lot of more like DVSA organizations that aren't culturally specific or culturally centered or community centered, you're almost required to separate some parts of yourself in order to protect survivors, in order to
Hmm.
center survivors. But I do think that there is a way to still center the experiences of people and also be authentic and true to yourself. And
Hmm.
so that's really where that came from. But also just looking at dialogue, and I really had a dream, and it's still there, right? Like a dream for this to be created and to have this be the norm in the way. And so that's where a lot of the capacity building for caring adults comes in, because I can't be everywhere. My team, we can't
Yeah.
be everywhere, but if we talk like, have a real conversation with you on ways you can connect with that young person in your life, then we're touched, like there's a possibility that they're getting something. And that's why we create resources. Like, we're very heavy on creating resources, and so that's
Hmm.
always been it. But some things that have shifted is the population, so it's still 11 to 24 always. But as of late, a lot of work we've been doing have been with young Black people, especially young Black people at predominantly white institutions,
Mm-hmm.
for many reasons. Like, one, many times young Black people at PWIs do not feel safe to go to their violence prevention office to report sexual violence or relationship abuse. Many are first generation. If they're going off to school, they don't have community or people they can lean on all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
then when harm happens in community, this is somebody that they are not just going to class with. I might see you on my day to day. Like, we have the same group of friends. And
Yeah.
so I know the cost of reporting, just like in community, right? I know the cost of calling the
Mm-hmm.
police. And so I might not do that. I might try to find other ways. And so through our program, the Clearing Ground, we've been trying to reshape, like, provide resources and opportunities to create spaces where young Black people can really get involved in sexual violence prevention. And so that's one thing that has shifted. But in my own mind too, like, I've been doing this work for a while now and probably will do it forever. But like, if I decide to do something different, the next generation of people who have that same feeling about this, I want them to like be there and know that like this is a space for you too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I deeply believe in the importance of having Black folks also be able to do prevention work and be able to do advocacy work. And we need more, like we need that next generation, which is why I just so love Ujima and love his council, because yes, we just need more young people, to care about
Yeah.
this and want to get involved. And so that's our twofold way of connecting young people to this work, but also knowing that like you can create safe spaces on your campuses too.
Yeah. So you were amazing this summer with us as part of Connected and Protected. And we talked a lot about mentorship. We were just talking about, really making sure that new advocates have a strong base. Um, what do you think in terms of education? And this is not one of our scripted questions, so
Okay.
but I go on little
It's
tangents.
okay.
But what in terms of advocacy do you think, like in terms of resources and knowledge building, was helpful to you that you think would
Mm,
be helpful to other people? Because you
yeah.
just shouted out Patricia Hill Collins, who's also one of my girls. Love her.
Yes.
Down. You shouted out Bell Hooks. Who else were some of those fundamental people for you?
Yes. Last question. So Audre Lorde and Pat Parker, specifically Sister Love. Um, that book, like, it's a tiny book and it's letters between them for over 13 years. And it's so much wisdom that's there because unfortunately they both passed away from cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
they talk so much in there about their diagnosis and about like why it happened. Like, it's one line of like the anger, like, is my anger the reason why I have cancer? And so that for me was like transformational because I'm like, I am doing similar work, like
Mm-hmm.
deeply invested in doing this. And I also want to make sure my health and well being is okay. But
Mm-hmm.
also just like knowing that sisterhood has helped me in
Yeah.
doing this work. And so Audre Lorde, Pat Parker, Toni Morrison, that's actually where we got the Clearing Ground name from. It's from Beloved. As chance would have it, the school we started at was Northern Kentucky University, which is where like Beloved was set, like the setting of it. And so that was the
Oh yeah,
clearing.
that
And
that was set
so
up.
it
Universe
was
set that up.
divine. So yeah, Toni Morrison has just been instrumental. But also, like Kalima Johnson,
Hmm.
my Detroit sister, Umi Hankins, like
Hmm.
I just lean into my sisters in Detroit so much who have helped me and guided me. It's so many women. And I can be on here all day, name people, Arlene Vassal, like it's just so many people who have helped and guided, but a lot of it has not been about the dynamics all the time about relationship abuse and sexual violence. So much of it has been about how do you maintain and preserve yourself. And I
Hmm.
think as I'm learning and as I have learned about that, I'm in turn learning way more about autonomy, about communication, about consent, about boundaries, and I'm able to also articulate that to other people too.
Hmm.
That's my core group. Maya Angelou, Angela Davis, Rosa Parks, my core group of folks that I learn from and I draw from. And recently, I don't know the authors, but there's this text of practices around circle keeping and African circle
Okay.
keeping practices as a form of like community violence intervention. But I'm like, this is also how we can do relationship abuse prevention and sexual violence prevention. And so that
Yeah.
it's a lot of authors that is in that, but I've been deep into that text lately.
That's great. And really even thinking about something like a healing circle that is a culturally specific way that folks have, generationally healed. And we've lost a
Mm-hmm.
lot of that within the movement itself. And so I love to hear that organizations like yours are really, again, rooted in culturally specific work and very intentional about bringing back practices that have
Yeah.
actually healed us in meaningful ways. And not to say that therapy isn't meaningful because it is. I love therapy. I
Mm-hmm.
think everybody should go at least once. And there's still something that people need. Like, right, we talked yesterday in our webinar a lot about body movement and dance and
Mm-hmm.
reclaiming. And so finding joy, right? Like those are culturally specific practices. So I love, love, love that 1124 is really dedicated to that.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that and eating some food and dancing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a part of it too.
Absolutely. So if you could give folks one final message about teen dating violence, about, supporting survivors, about rallying as a community, what would that message be?
I would say check in with the young people in your life. Just check in with them. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions, have conversations, and be genuinely interested in things they're interested in.
Hmm.
We're battling the screens to have authentic conversations with young people, and
Yeah.
so we can model, what that looks like and what that is because one thing that has been consistent is trust and care in people. And when there's trust and care there, people are more likely to share their experiences, more
Hmm.
likely to seek out help when they need it, and also know that they can come to a non-judgmental space. But that comes with relationship building. And so I encourage folks to like build relationships with the young people in your life, even if it's like a little bit at a time. They'll
Hmm.
see you, as a trustworthy person.
Absolutely. And so how can folks stay connected, up to date, support 1124?
Yeah, so our website is 11 spelled out -24.org. That's where we have all of our resources and updates. On Instagram, we're underscore 1124, all together spelled out 1124. Facebook, the same thing, 1124 Inc. That's where all of our information is. Our Instagram is the one that we use the most, though.
Okay. And thank you, thank you, thank you again, Tanji, so much for joining us. We will have you back, of course, for more
Yes, thank you for
conversations and
having
more
me.
work. Yes, yes, we love you. Folks, definitely stay connected. Definitely look into the work that 1124 is doing. They're really out here doing really great work. Ujima family, stay connected to Ujima, all our social media at Ujima Community. Stay tuned for other Ujima talks, webinars, coffee, and convos, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. Have a good
thank
one.
you.
All right.